So I think we're just about ready to get started. So once again, I'll introduce myself. My name is Samuel Thompson. I'm the program manager for UK Scholar Awards here at the US-UK Fulbright Commission. Just a quick word before we do get started. Tonight's webinar is being recorded. So if you think it's particularly useful, you can send that link on to your colleagues who you think might be interested, or you can review information that you've heard tonight that you may wish to use for your application. So just bear that in mind. You don't need to necessarily note everything down right now. And then just to say again what we'll be going through tonight, we're going to do a little bit about what Fulbright is and what we're about, a little bit on our partner awards in general, and then I'm going to go through each of the partner awards in turn, talking a little bit about the specifications for each. And then at the end, we'll have a question and answer session, which will be moderated by my colleague, Tom. Until then, if you have questions, please put them into the chat and then Tom can moderate those for me. So let's go on today. So what is the US-UK Fulbright Commission? The US-UK Fulbright Commission is a commission that was founded by bilateral treaty in the 1940s. It's established by Senator J. William Fulbright after the Second World War because he believed that educational exchange internationally was a great way to foster peace and understanding through and really favor this idea of mutual understanding between peoples and nations. So he believed that if the US government used their money to send scholars and postgraduate students abroad and also brought people into the US, that peace was more likely moving forward. And over the last 70 years, that's what we've done. We've us and other commissions around the world have contributed to postgraduate students and scholars across the world going between their home countries in the US to undertake research, to do postgraduate degrees, and to teach. We offer postgraduate and scholar awards at our commission, and on average, every year, 40 grantees go from the UK to the US, and grants can be offered in any discipline and any any accredited US university or higher education institution, with the caveat that they must be full-time and in person. Our awards, like any other, have an application process. We have a link to the application on our website. You can see our website here on the PowerPoint, so you might want to make a note of that if you've not been there already. But if you go there, go to Going to the US, and then Scholar Awards, there's a page called How to Apply, and there you'll find a link to our application system. Our deadline at the moment is Monday, the 9th of November. We have a 5 p.m. GMT deadline. After that, we won't be able to accept applications, and we can only accept applications through the online application form. You can't email us your application, and we don't accept paper applications. You must only apply for one award. There's occasionally some confusion about this, but you can only apply for one award, and you must pick that award when you apply. You must allow time for your recommenders to be able to support your application. Every year, there's a couple of people who don't finish till the last minute, and then their recommenders have no time to fill out the recommendation form. So when you complete your application, there's a section in the application where you can say, I'd like my referees to receive this now, and they will receive a link from our online application system to fill out a recommendation for you. Please make sure that these are people that you're in touch with regularly, because if there is a problem where they don't receive the link, we need to know so that we can sort that out. But also, the deadline that is there for your application submission is the same deadline for recommenders. So make sure that they are also providing their recommendation for you before 5 p.m. on the 9th of November. We have on our website, on that How to Apply page, we have a set of country-specific instructions. This is a PDF that you can read. Please read that because there are times where the application form is different from what we require. So you need to be able to refer to our country-specific instructions in cases where they contradict the application, and those supersede the application form. So a great example of this is that the application form asks for a letter of support from your home university. The UK Commission doesn't require you to provide this, and it says as much in our country-specific instructions. So please make sure you're reading those, because they can make your life a lot easier when you're making your application. The reason that we need these is because the application form is live internationally. Every Fulbright program uses that application form, and so there are things that are applicable to some countries that aren't applicable to others, and that's why we use these country-specific forms, country-specific instructions, to be able to help you provide the application that we need for our awards. We also require you to submit a supplemental form. You'll see this on our How to Apply page. The supplemental form is a compulsory and mandatory part of the application. So if you finish an application without submitting a supplemental form, you will not be considered eligible for an award. So make sure that you complete that as well. Moving on. So what are our partner awards? So some of you may be familiar with our All Disciplines Award, which is an award in any discipline at any accredited US university. Our partner awards are a little bit different. These are awards that are partnered with various professional bodies, charitable organizations, or even universities and educational institutions in the United States. So what this means is they may have different specifications to our All Disciplines Award. That may be in terms of discipline, that may be where you're required to go for the award, but also they have different benefits and have different levels of competition to our All Disciplines Award as well. So we're going to go through each of them now, so that you get a clear idea of what each one is, maybe whether you may want to apply for that one, and then what is required of you, and then what is provided as part of the award. So our first award that I want to talk about is the Fulbright Elon University Award. So this is an award that we have partnered with Elon University in North Carolina. It is a university that specializes in teaching undergraduates, and it's a university that really specializes in teaching. So whilst you're still pursuing research at Elon University as part of the award, you are required to do some teaching because teaching is core to the university's identity, and they feel like they really specialize in experiential teaching and engaged classroom teaching. And so one of the things that you'll see if you go on this award page on the website is they really like applicants who engage in pedagogies and styles of teaching. So educational research is a big deal for Elon as well. As part of this, when you're making your application to Elon, you must submit a teaching plan and a syllabus in your application, because without that, it doesn't appear clear that you intend to teach while you're at Elon. So you must be able to provide evidence of that, because it's part of what your application is assessed on, as well as the research proposal. You also need to acquire a letter of support from Elon. This can be from the academic that you plan to work with, the faculty that you plan to work with, but it must come from Elon University. This award can cover a semester or an entire academic year. The award offers $5,000 per month, and the grantee is offered university support equivalent to that of a full-time faculty member. Now, this is a little bit different to some of the All Disciplines Award, where universities are may or may not treat you in this way because there's not that partnership there, whereas Elon really values having Fulbrighters and really likes to support them as if they are full-time members of staff at Elon. If you are successful in being granted the Elon Award as well, you're provided private accommodation on campus at Elon University, and you'll also have access to a car as part of the grant for exploring North Carolina during some of your free time. If you're planning to research at Elon as well, there's the ability to do your research in collaboration with other nearby universities. So some of the famous universities nearby Elon that you may wish to collaborate with are the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill and Duke University. So whilst your focus of your award should still be at Elon University, there is that possibility to collaborate somewhat more broadly. Our next award is the Fulbright Lloyds Award. This is funded by the Lloyds Tercentenary Research Foundation, and you can go on their website to get a sense of the research that they like to do and sponsor. This is one of our broader partner awards. So whilst the topic itself must be related to risk, that can be in a number of different disciplines. So on our website, we list a few in terms of things like big data and risk, volcanology, medical risk, things like that. Our current cohort of Lloyds scholars is actually a really good example of just how broad these fields can be. So our current cohort includes a political psychologist, an applied mathematician, and a human geographer, all of whom have projects and research that are really relevant to risk, but in terms of their fields and their chosen areas of speciality, they don't overlap in any way at all. So this award is incredibly broad for what you can choose to do with it, but you just need to make sure that it comes back to the central idea of risk. This award supports scholars to go to any accredited US university and offers a $5,000 a month stipend. It is a 3 to 12 month project, but preference is given by Lloyds to 6 to 12-month projects. We occasionally have more than one Lloyds scholar. So as I said, this year we have 3 Lloyds scholars. So there's often more awards offered than the one for this award. We have our Fulbright Royal College of Surgeons Award. So this is an award for practitioners and researchers to research into surgical fields at any accredited US university. As before, it's a 3 to 12-month project. Rather than the $5,000 a month amount that you're probably used to seeing from these slides at this point, it's a £2,275 per month grant amount, but you also would get your basic NHS salary paid to you as well, converted at the prevailing rate into dollars, and this is paid by the Royal College of Surgeons themselves. This award does have a stipulation on it. So when you're writing your application for this award, you need to make sure that you're not proposing a project that would require you to either practice clinically or have clinical contact with patients, because Fulbright policy doesn't allow you to do either of those things. So you just need to make sure that it's compliant with that policy, but otherwise it can be research into any surgical field. We have our Fulbright Royal Society of Edinburgh Award. So this is for academics and professionals with a clear connection to Scotland. So whether that's a career that impacts Scotland or someone who's worked in Scottish education for a long time and is doing research that would benefit Scottish education, or perhaps there's someone with a research background that is important to Scotland and a knowledge of Scotland. So our current scholar is doing linguistic research and sociolinguistic research into Gaelic, which is clearly got that link to Scotland. The Royal Society of Edinburgh Award covers a 3-month project, and it can be at any accredited US university. And again, it's at $5,000 a month amount. We have our Fulbright Smithsonian Institution Award. This is at any Smithsonian location, which includes 19 museums and the National Zoo. It's a 3-month project, again, and a $5,000 award. I really recommend with this award, if you're interested in it, checking our website, because the Smithsonian have a catalogue of researchers and research that they're doing right now. So it's really worthwhile checking that to be able to write a project that appeals to the Smithsonian for their funding. Finding someone that you want to collaborate with or a collection that you want to use is really worthwhile for making this award a reality for you. So please check our website so that you can find the links to the Smithsonian and their resources there. Our next award is the Fulbright Urology Foundation Award. So this is, again, for UK academic or professional urologists or urology nurses. It's a 3 to 9-month project that offers $5,000 a month as a grant amount. And again, like with the Royal College of Surgeons Award, you're not permitted to practice clinically or have clinical contact as part of this award. And this award should be into areas of helping to cure or prevent urological diseases. our next award. So these next couple of awards are less academic awards, but more focused on professionals. So we have our Fulbright Wales Public Sector Award, and this is offered to public sector employees from across Wales for them to undertake 3-month projects in assessing best practices or research. And it can be at any accredited UNSC university, and it's $5,000 a month as a grant amount, as before. And we also have our Fulbright Northern Ireland Public Sector Award. So similarly, this is for public sector employees across Northern Ireland. They need to be working at the Northern Irish Civil Service grade 7 or above. And again, it's the 3-month project for $5,000 a month. And similarly, it's that assessing best practices or researching into best practices at any accredited US university. And I should say, because this has reminded me, for the Wales Public Sector Award, we're looking for at least senior management level for eligibility. And then our final award, I've kept it here because although it's not strictly a partner award, it is similar to our partner awards in that it has a specific discipline that it's tied to. So this is our Fulbright Cybersecurity Award, and this can be in any area of cybersecurity. This can be for professionals or academics. And we're looking at a project that looks to engage in either professional development, assessing best practices, or into research for cybersecurity. It's a 3 to 6 month project. It's $5,000 a month. And again, this is one of those awards where sometimes there are multiple on offer. But this award isn't sponsored by a partner. It's assessed internally as a Fulbright award and by our reading panelists. So that's worth bearing in mind. And finally, I'd like to just move on and say I'm now willing to take questions. So I'll welcome Tom back onto the panel.
Let's take a sip of water before the first question, Tim, which I think is I think it's kind of been covered by the presentation, but I'll ask anyway.
Yeah, no
so obviously the different grant lengths, and this particular person is asking whether or not they'd be at a disadvantage to only be applying for a 3-month grant as opposed to a longer grant. Is that the case for all awards, or is that certain awards prefer a short grant? And maybe
yeah, I think so. As you probably saw in the presentation, and from what I said, there are some awards that actually only allow for 3-month grants, and there's some awards. So the Lloyds Award, Lloyds have stated that they'd rather back 6-month or longer grants. I think an important thing to remember is that for a 3-month grant, you're able to present a concise project, but also you're asking for less funding. So sometimes that can make you a little bit more competitive, but really you should consider is there a grant length that is specified by the award? So am I applying for an award that only allows for a 3-month grant? Or if I have space to do a longer grant, what length of time do I actually need to do my project in? Because that project planning and timetable of what your project fits into is part of the application. It's part of the application that our expert reading panelists will be looking into. So just make sure that that all adds up. And it doesn't look like you're trying to squeeze something that could take 6 months or 9 months into 3 months, because that could harm your application.
Kind of following on from that slightly, the question is asking essentially how much of does the research all have to be completed in the US in the course of the grant? So for this instance, this particular person is proposing to do some research before going to the US, some in the US, and then has a plan for how their research will continue when they return to the UK. Does this fit, or does the whole research program have to be done while in the US?
That's a good question. So I think that does fit, and I think what you just want to be mindful of is that that research timetable makes sense, so that it still makes sense for you to be in the US for when that research needs to take place on the timetable. Because I think we'd expect a lot of our researchers to be doing relevant research before and after their grant, and as an exchange program or like an academic exchange. We'd certainly be looking for some of that dissemination to be happening when you return to your home institution, and seeing you put into action things that you've learned on your Fulbright Award and getting some of your research out there, whether that's within your home institution or whether that's within a community at home. But certainly that would all come after the time in the US and after the grant time, and any preparatory work for the grant would be happening beforehand. So I think I don't think we'd be surprised to see a project timeline that had work going on before and after the grant length.
Great. The next question is asking whether or not there is a ideal stage or time, I guess, in terms of like career, when it's good to apply for Fulbright Award. In this particular instance, is it appropriate to apply prior to a PhD or during a research PhD? Is there a specific time we look for awards, or is it, or as the question says, dependent on what is best for the research project and candidate?
Yeah, I think that it sounds like a cop-out, but that it depends on the research project in question, really. So this year we have a number of early career scholars, and then some scholars who are perhaps a little bit further along in their careers as well. But yeah, if you're applying for one of the awards that doesn't require you to have a PhD already, so something like the Royal College of Surgeons Award, then applying before undertaking a PhD is expected and has been done before. But don't be put off applying at different stages of your career, although some awards do require a PhD for eligibility. So something like our All Disciplines Award does require you to have a PhD or equivalent level of qualification before making the application, or sorry, before being awarded the award. So just make sure that you've checked the eligibility for the award you're applying for. But as long as you're eligible, there's no preference given, provided it seems that you are capable of undertaking the project that you've proposed.
I guess maybe one thing to add on that is that although you need a PhD to apply for the All Disciplines Scholar Award, you don't need a PhD to apply for the All Disciplines Postgraduate Award.
That is true, yeah.
You would be able to apply for the other, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, and on that note as well, for the Scholar Awards, you don't need your PhD to apply. You just need to make sure that you have your PhD awarded to you before your grant would start. If you're still finishing up, or if you've submitted but haven't had your viva yet, as long as you would have had it awarded before your grant starts, you're still eligible.
Great. The next question is quite specific, but I think it relates to a more general question. So this question is asking, this particular person spent 2 years in the USA previously as a researcher working for the US government, and they've noted that in our kind of in the notes that we sometimes, we give preference to applications that have not spent previous time in the States. They've asked if we can provide more indication in this particular case. I think the time they were in the States was 2010, 2012. Maybe you could sort of outline that more broadly as well.
Yeah, so in the specific instance, if you've been in the United States from 2010 to 2012, you would still be eligible. There wouldn't be any conflict with visa, and we would still consider your application. When we say that we give preference to applicants who haven't spent significant time in the US, that's to do with the Fulbright mission side of things. So this idea of creating greater mutual understanding, is that people who haven't spent a long time in the US before stand to gain more perhaps from that experience of spending time in another culture, of working independently internationally, than someone who has spent considerable time in the US before. But something like 2 years wouldn't disqualify you from award by any means. That's so if you're still considering applying, please do. But just know that someone who's never been to the US before may be considered slightly more preferentially for the award, simply because we feel like they may gain more from the experience. But that's all why Fulbright and why the university that you are planning to spend your grant length at are in the application. So make sure to write about what it is when you're proposing your project that you would gain from your time in the US, for sure.
A question that's perhaps quite slightly linked, and it's also a very common question that comes up a lot, is do you have to be a UK citizen to apply So,
Yeah, so the guidelines that we have say that you have to be a UK citizen, but there are some exceptions to this. So if you've spent a long part of your career in the UK and you're dedicated to career in the UK, but you're not a UK citizen, you may be eligible for our awards. One of the things that we do ask though is that if your home country also has Fulbright Awards available, we ask that you write to your home country's Fulbright Commission and find out whether you'd be eligible or not for their awards, because it may be that you're actually eligible for their awards rather than ours. So it's worth communicating with them before starting an application through our commission. You may also, if you're not a UK citizen, be asked on the application to provide evidence of your right to remain in the UK.
So the next question is about letters of support. So this person has read the guidelines, but is still not quite sure if you require a letter of support from your institution. It says you do not need one for the UK Commission application. What does this mean?
Yeah, so you don't require a letter of support from your home institution. So that's if you work in a university or perhaps in a hospital, your application is eligible if you do not have a letter of support saying that your home institution supports you taking time to go to the US and undertake your Fulbright Award. That said, you're also not disqualified for having one, but it's just not a required part of the application and you shouldn't feel any pressure to include one. What you do still require, though, is a letter of invitation from your host university. This needs to be on university letterhead, and it can come from centrally within the university. It can come from your faculty, or can even come from a specific academic that you would be collaborating with. But it is a required part of the application, and your application is considered ineligible if you do not have a letter of invitation.
Thank you. So this question is asking, so this particular person will be applying for the All Disciplines Scholar Awards, and they're asking if there will be any funds for research expenses, in this particular case, to pay people to participate in research. I guess that also could be broadened out to basically ask are there restrictions on how the award money can be spent, and do we make stipulations?
So we don't make stipulations on how the award money would be spent, but the award grant would be, I believe, the expected money for you to use in something like your research project for that, although you may find that your host university has grants that you can apply for, or that your home university might have funding as well that they'd be willing to offer you towards that. But that kind of research expense would be expected that your grant would cover that.
Great. We've got a question asking if you've previously been a Fulbright Award recipient, can you reapply, basically?
So if you have previously held an award, then you may apply, but it may make your application less preferred than someone who's never held an award before. Similarly to the having spent a long time in the US. It's just that it's the nature of the Fulbright program is to make sure that as many people as possible have the opportunity to gain that understanding and that experience in another culture. So if you've previously been awarded a Fulbright Award, you're not ineligible for applying, and especially if it was some time ago. But you should just be aware of the fact that it may not make your application more likely to be awarded.
This next question is probably actually best answered by saying, so yeah, they're asking, they've got some specific questions about eligibility and requirements. Is there what's the best route to go to sort of clarify that? Is it to approach us at Fulbright, or should they contact the partner sponsoring the award?
So I would recommend reading the country-specific guidelines on our website. And then if your questions aren't covered by those, get in touch with us, and we should be able to answer your question. If we're unable to answer the question, we'll check with, if we're unable to answer the question in the moment, we will find a source for the information that we need. But I'd always recommend checking the resources available on our website first. And if you can't find those, you can email us at Fulbright programs at fulbright.org.uk, where someone will pick up your application. Your question.
We've got another question about essentially about the funding and so on. So this particular person would continue to be drawing their salary from their employer whilst taking the Fulbright Award. Is this a problem, or should they be taking a leave of absence from their employer, or is it okay to continue receiving salary in the UK?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think it's best to email me about this for a clear answer. But I think there's also information about if you're expecting to receive funding in our application instructions. It may be in the application instructions page, on our website, there's also a link to the policies this year, and I think it may be in that document. But if it's not clear there, please get in touch and we'll try and answer that question.
We've got a question. It's basically from someone who's only just really become aware of the possibility of applying for a Fulbright Award this year, and they're asking if, at this point, it's still do they still have time to apply this year with the current deadline?
I believe that it's still realistic to make an application for sure. I think it's worth applying if you're interested and you have an idea that you'd like to put into a project, because the worst case scenario is that your project doesn't get shortlisted this year and then you can apply again next year. There's no harm in making an application, and I think there's plenty of time as long as you are committed to making an application and put in the time to make sure that you've got referees and a letter of invitation and the project all put together. But there's still time to do that. So don't be put off by the deadline at this stage.
So as things stand, we don't currently have any more questions. So
fantastic.
People would like to ask any final questions, do so now.
I suppose, Tom, as well, if there's anything that you don't think I've covered.
The one thing I thought you could maybe cover would be just and forgive me if you've already covered this in the other webinar, but maybe just go through the different components of the application in terms of what would have to be in that.
Sure. Yeah, no, that's a good idea. So for the Scholar application, the application form asks for biographical details, so kind of what you'd expect on a job or a grant application, but then you're asked to provide a project proposal. So this would be what your research goal is, a timeline, and then some space about why you've chosen your specific institution, why you've chosen Fulbright, and how you plan to disseminate this research or the impact that you plan to have with it. You're asked to provide a academic CV if you are applying for one of our academic awards. If you're applying for one of our professional awards, a professional CV is recommended in this spot. You'll then need your letter of invitation from your host institution. And we also ask for 3 references. So those can be referees at your home institution, or they can be referees that you know from your wider network. What I recommend is not having your host academic also be one of your referees, because they will be writing a letter of invitation already. So maximize the amount of support that you have for your application by getting a 3rd referee from somewhere else. And I think what's important to know is that all of those stages of the application are important, because the application is assessed internally at Fulbright, but also externally by academic reading panels. So Your academic project will be reviewed by people who are experts in your field. But all of the information about why Fulbright and why a given university, that'll be reviewed by us. So people who are experienced in the program. And then at interview, you'll be assessed on your ability to communicate your ideas and your suitability for Fulbright. So everything that's in the application is reviewed, and we review holistically.
That's great. We in that summary, we've had one final question, which is I think so if someone was to submit an application, but due to some kind of due to the complexity of the application, perhaps miss a part, or like something wasn't quite right about the application, would that be rejected outright, or would we at the Commission seek to contact them and maybe ask for a clarification or to resubmit a particular bit if it was uploaded in the, I don't know, the wrong format or something?
We would always seek to make sure that you were able to complete your application, rectify any mistakes, or otherwise get a shot at uploading something that you may have missed, because we're not here to stop you from joining our program. We want to enable you to produce the best application that you're able to and stand the best chance of undertaking a Fulbright Award that you can. So if maybe if a PDF that you've uploaded is corrupted, or if there's a section missing, when we review your application, we'll always get in touch and make sure that you have an opportunity to submit the application that you want to submit rather than the one that happens to come to us.
That's great. I think that's as it stands, we don't actually have any other questions. I guess maybe Sammy, you could finish off with, have you got any kind of top tips or going, not necessarily a bit like going about the application process or submitting an application, with your guidance?
Yeah, I think, I mean, my first tip is going to sound really obvious, but don't take for granted how many people won't do this, which is just make sure to read everything. Having all of the information available to you will make your application better, and it will also stop you from making missteps. So just make sure you read all of the information we have available, and that you're following instructions. I think the second thing that I'd advise is to take the Fulbright side of this really seriously. That's not to say that the academic side or the professional side isn't important, but Fulbright is more than just research sponsorship. There's a whole mission and ethos to the Fulbright program, and so make sure you've read up on the Fulbright program, and that when you're thinking about your application, think about the elements of exchange that are important to you. Think about the elements of being in a different culture that are important to you. Think about how your impact as a scholar will play, or as a Fulbright scholar will play in the US, and how it will play when you return to the UK. Think about those ambassadorial qualities that you can bring to the table, because we do really care about academic merit and expertise, but we also care a lot about potential for leadership and ambassadorial qualities and cultural exchange. So remember that this program is more than just an academic program.
That's great. Thanks, Sam. We don't have any more questions, so great. Unless anyone is going to start frantically typing in the next 2 seconds, I wonder whether we should.
If you have a question and you've forgotten it, or if we log off and then something immediately occurs to you, we're not gone. We have a program inbox. Like I've said, it's Fulbright programs at fulbright.org.uk. And as you see on the screen, that's Fulbright with 1 L, and that's programs spelt this way, the UK way. But we don't stop existing when the webinar stops. You can always email us, and we will endeavor to answer as soon as we can. Great. Thank you everyone for attending. I hope this was informational, and I hope you consider applying.